Hey everyone, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast live stream. This may be one of the most significant days in the Middle East in years. And folks, considering the events of the past year alone, that's saying something. Israel today, breaking news here, destroyed. No other way to put it. If you see the crater in the ground, the massive crater, you'll see what I mean. Israel destroyed Hezbollah's headquarters in Beirut in a massive airstrike earlier today. Not only that, the main target of the strike was none other than one of the world's most notorious terrorists, one of Israel's greatest enemies, the leader of Hezbollah, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah. He was reportedly inside this building. I should say beneath this building. This was an underground lair, an underground bunker that served as Hezbollah's main command and control center underneath a residential building in Dahia, a neighborhood in the southern suburbs of Beirut, which is a notorious Hezbollah stronghold. There is southern Lebanon along the Israel border, and then there is Beirut, Dahia in particular. That's where this command and control center was located. And the way it all went down, folks, we want to unpack this first of all. Second of all, what comes next? Third of all, just let me make clear to you right now. It is about 4:25 p.m. Friday afternoon, September 27th, in Dallas, Texas, where I'm coming to you from, 5:25 on the East Coast of the United States. As of now, we don't yet know whether Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah is dead, wounded, alive. We cannot confirm that yet. Now, if you're watching this a few hours later, you're not live, say you click on it on our homepage at 10 o'clock tonight, it may be a different story. Although right now it's past midnight in Lebanon and Israel. Will we get confirmation soon? Will it wait till tomorrow? We don't know. But as of now, at least, we're not sure if Nasrallah is dead or alive. But reports I'm reading out of the region, they're trickling out fast and furious, are saying that Israel is increasingly confident that Nasrallah was eliminated today. On the flip side, Hezbollah says no way, he's alive, and the Iranian regime says they're looking into it. So we're getting some conflicting reports, but reports out of Israel from Israeli news networks and media sources, they're saying more and more, wow, it looks like Nasrallah is dead and gone. Again, we cannot confirm that. He may poke his head out of the rubble. We don't know. Can't confirm, but certainly Israel targeted him today. And again, when you see that massive crater, look, this Israeli strike reportedly leveled 6 buildings. That's how big it was. I mean, and those plumes of smoke will be seen for miles and miles. And it was a massive, massive explosion that rocked the Lebanese capital earlier today. And the way it all went down, folks, is very noteworthy. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli prime minister, spoke today. He entered the lion's den once again. He spoke at the UN General Assembly, as he does every September. He went back. I was unsure if he would go this year, considering Israel's in the midst of war right now on several fronts. But he went. He laid down the gauntlet for the world. His message essentially was, hey, we're going to keep fighting when it comes to Hezbollah. Because, folks, we've been telling you, the West in particular, led by the Biden administration, and France, Emmanuel Macron, is pressuring Israel relentlessly to come to some sort of ceasefire with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And there were reports. Bibi arrived in the United States yesterday. There were reports that, oh man, okay, Israel may just agree to the ceasefire. And wow, were those reports wrong? Because today, Netanyahu not only laid down the gauntlet, what a speech, folks. If you can go back and watch the video, or at least read the full transcript of Bibi's speech today at the UN, it was a tour de force, as he always does at the UN, but with even greater significance this time around. He laid out the numbers of Hamas, how Hamas has been massively decimated in Gaza. That's another story. We're talking about the North and Hezbollah today, but it's all interconnected. These are all Iranian proxies. But the extent to which Hamas has been completely decimated was stunning. He laid that out. And the damage done to Hezbollah over the past week and a half alone, starting really on September 17th with the explosion of thousands of pagers simultaneously, when they were on the persons of Hezbollah terrorists, that kicked off 10 days of hell for Hezbollah, culminating today with the possible death of its overall leader, Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, after the death of dozens more Hezbollah leaders in the past 10 days alone. He was kind of the last man standing, and now he may not be standing either. But here's how it went down. There are photos that have been released by Israeli officials of Bibi in his hotel room in New York before speaking at the General Assembly on the phone, reportedly okaying this strike in Beirut against Nasrallah. Now, for Israel to carry out such a major and daring strike in Beirut, no less, against Hezbollah's headquarters, they had to know that Nasrallah was there. They had to have just pinpoint, rock-solid intelligence that Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah was in the building. That's number one. Bibi greenlit it. But here's the interesting, I think, folks. I talked about how he laid down the gauntlet. It was a blistering speech today at the UN. He called out the hypocrisy of the nations of the world, and he made a very cogent point that we've been discussing a bunch here on the live stream over the past few weeks. What would your nation do? And look, we've got viewers here in the live stream from throughout the world. What would any nation do if it was in Israel's shoes with that situation in the north? At least 60,000, probably more like 80,000 residents of northern Israel evacuated from their homes for the better part of a year, since October 8th, 2023, nearly 1 year ago, when Hezbollah, key point here, unilaterally launched this war against Israel, began firing rockets, missiles, drones, and mortars at Israel, not the other way around. These are the bitter fruits of what Hezbollah has wrought. Now it's coming down upon their heads. Very biblical when you think about it, that kind of justice, especially when it comes to Israel's enemies. But for the better part of that year, northern Israel has quite literally been a ghost town. Netanyahu used that term today, ghost town, and he asked the world, especially the United States, what would you do? Hey, Israel's the size of the state of New Jersey. It cannot afford to have an entire region shut down. Economically, that's a disaster. It can't be sustained long term. America, what would you do if El Paso, Texas, was shut down for months on end, thousands of people evacuated? We wouldn't stand for it. No nation would. And yet Israel is being asked to not only stand for it, but to capitulate just when it has the advantage and is ready to strike death blows. It's being told, no, restrain yourself, ceasefire, and kick the can down the road and leave Hezbollah alive to fight another day. And Bibi said today, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put the interest, as he should, of the citizens of Israel front and center, as should the leader of the United States, Great Britain, any nation in the world should put the interest of their citizens first and the security of their citizens first. Bibi, if there was any doubt whether he was going to do that, well, he laid down the ultimate mic drop today. He finishes this blistering speech at the UN, calling out the hypocrites and the moral rot in that institution, anti-Semites. Hey, to give you an idea, the UN, folks, has passed more resolutions against Israel than any other nation since the UN's inception in the mid-1940s. That means more resolutions against tiny Israel than against China, Cuba, the former Soviet Union, Iran, Syria, North Korea. The list goes on. That says all there is to say. Bibi gives this speech, and a few minutes later, literally a few minutes after he ends this speech, he wraps it up at the UN. Literally a few minutes after that, maybe 5 minutes later, news breaks of this massive airstrike in Beirut targeting Hezbollah's headquarters. Again, that's sort of like the ultimate mic drop, where Bibi says to the world at the UN General Assembly, the assembled nations, hey, we're not going to stop fighting. We're going to continue this, and basically we're going to win this fight against Hezbollah. Ends the speech, and it's almost like he was saying, and just to show you I mean business, here you go. Nasrallah eliminated, potentially. That does not strike me as an Israel that wants to back off now and play the world's game and the world's appeasement game. Deterrence hasn't worked for Israel with Hezbollah or Hamas. That was blown out of the water quite literally on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel, and October 8th when Hezbollah attacked Israel. In both cases, unilaterally, they weren't provoked. They both launched war on two separate fronts. Now, we want to dig into this more. Folks, it's going to be, hey, a long weekend, perhaps a long week and beyond in the world's most chaotic and volatile region. Two things to remember here. Number one, we've got you covered. We'll be coming to you with breaking news, updates. If anything happens tomorrow, Sunday, we will come to you live. For such a time as this, if you like what you're hearing, if you appreciate what you're hearing, and you value this kind of information from an unapologetically biblical perspective, hey, be sure to subscribe. Click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. We're fast approaching 1 million subscribers, which is hard to believe. It's been a long journey, a lot of hard work, but we're just thankful to God for putting us in this position. And we want you to subscribe, not for our glory, but to get the message out. The prophet Isaiah described these times very accurately, personified today at the UN. Good is called evil, and evil is called good. We want to cut through the clutter here on the channel and bring you the truth. Again, for such a time as this, and the more people we have subscribing, the more YouTube will recommend these videos far and wide throughout the world in a time, again, when truth is at a premium and it's badly, badly needed, especially from a Christian perspective. That's number one. And number two, our partner for today's live stream, our good friends at Meir Panim. Wanted to give them a shout out real quick before we get into the ramifications of today and what comes next in the Middle East. Meir Panim, folks, it's israelcharity.org. If you've been watching me for a while, you know we partner with a select few organizations, and Meir Panim is at the top of that list. One of our longest partnerships here on the channel, and we are proud to partner with an organization, I don't say this lightly, that's doing God's work. A few things here. Number one, I mentioned probably 80,000 Israelis evacuated from the north, many thousands more evacuated from the south and the areas surrounding Gaza. That's where Meir Panim comes in. Folks, they run these incredible soup kitchens throughout the land of Israel. Now, you might say a soup kitchen. No, this is not some ramshackle little facility. These are state-of-the-art, beautiful facilities delivering hot meals, finest quality food, shelter, clothing, everything to Israel's most vulnerable, the neediest in Israel. I'm talking Holocaust survivors. I'm talking children living in poverty. And some of the numbers, the displaced families, 100,000 displaced families in Israel right now, trying to rebuild their lives due to the war, 100,000 IDF reservists who've left their families, 1 in 3 Holocaust survivors living in poverty, 2.6 million Israelis living in poverty overall. Meir Panim is stepping into the gap and stepping into the breach. Again, it's israelcharity.org. Here's what they're doing. As the high holiday, during a time of war, Israel's time of greatest need, as the high holidays are on the horizon. Look, next week, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, the most important dates on the Jewish calendar and for the people of Israel, where people really need a helping hand. They want to spend time with their families during the holidays. Here's what Meir Panim is doing. Delivering 30,000 pantry boxes filled with symbolic foods for the holidays, like apples, honey, challah bread. 25,000 holiday meals donated to displaced families, Holocaust survivors, and IDF soldiers on the front lines, and 2 million shekels worth of prepaid grocery cards for families so they can shop for holiday meals next week. This is God's work. I don't say that lightly. And there is a biblical mandate for Bible believers to bless the people of Israel, laid out in Genesis 12:3. I can't think of a better way to do it. And again, everyone asks me, Eric, how can I help right now? Israel's under assault. It's israelcharity.org, Meir Panim, israelcharity.org. Check them out. You won't regret it. Okay, what comes next? Number one, we are waiting for confirmation on the demise of Sheikh Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. That's first and foremost. And folks, again, man, It seems unlikely that he survived that massive airstrike, but we shall see. Hey, we're if anything, we strive for accuracy here, and that's why we're holding off. As a matter of fact, today, the Stakelbeck Tonight Show on TBN, which we just filmed, we said, look, we got to hold off and be very careful with how we word this. So that's what we're doing here. No confirmation yet. Certainly, he was a target. Certainly, it doesn't look very good for good old Hassan. But okay, what comes next? Israel, you can expect Israel, I think, first of all, to press the initiative tonight and take advantage. Look, Hezbollah was already in complete disarray. The exploding pagers and walkie-talkies last week, the massive airstrikes conducted by Israel throughout the past week, including taking out Hezbollah rocket launchers left and right, the takeout of quite literally the entire leadership of Hezbollah's elite Radwan force last Friday, and including some additional ones in the days after that. You have an organization that doesn't know whether it's coming or going. And yeah, Hezbollah still, although Israel's taken out a good chunk of the medium range and precision guided missiles in Hezbollah's possession over the past few days, Hezbollah still has a bunch of rockets and missiles. No doubt. Folks, this is a formidable foe. As I mentioned earlier, they spent years building up this arsenal with help from, of course, their Iranian masters. But if you have the rockets and the missiles laying around, and by the way, inside civilian homes, we showed you this earlier this week, Hezbollah willfully and in a very evil, fitting for them fashion, stores these rockets and missiles in civilian homes in southern Lebanon. So you have literally a rocket in the attic as a family in the living room below is eating dinner together. This really happening. But they've got these rockets and missiles. But two things. Number one, if there are no launchers left, and Israel's been very shrewd, I think, here targeting the launchers. If there are no launchers left, how do you launch them? And number two, who fires them? You might say, what are you talking about? Hezbollah's got 40,000 foot soldiers, well-trained, battle-hardened, indeed. But folks, in these strikes over the past week and a half, remember, Israel didn't just take out some schlubs on the street. They took out mid-level to top Hezbollah commanders. Do the guys who are left, who are scuffling around, do they have the know-how necessarily to operate this heavy weaponry that Hezbollah possesses? That's a good question. And secondly, how on earth are they communicating right now? After the pagers, the walkie-talkies were taken out, I've been saying this week, is it Pony Express, carrier pigeon, send a raven? How is Hezbollah communicating right now? We saw the dangerous point they're in last Friday, a week ago, when in another strike in Beirut, the entire Radwan force, essentially, the leadership of that elite Hezbollah unit, gathered together in one place. Not very wise. And under normal circumstances, Hezbollah wouldn't do that. But these are no normal circumstances. Their entire communication network has been breached, destroyed. So they met together. Bad move, boys, as Israel bombed that spot and took them out. And now Nasrallah. Perhaps Nasrallah wasn't as careful as he would usually be. He's been hiding like a rat in bunker to bunker to bunker, probably never sleeping in the same place twice for the better part of 18 years, ever since the last war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. Well, he reared his head just long enough for Israeli intelligence apparently to get a bead on where he is, and he may no longer be on this earth. We shall see again, and maybe we'll have confirmation by tomorrow. I'm sure I'll come to you tomorrow, by the way. I'd be surprised if I don't. A lot happening here. But you see Hezbollah right now starting to approach the situation that Hamas is in. Hamas is in its death throw. Hamas is no longer a factor, folks. Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Maybe some sporadic rocket fire, very, very sporadic. Some 90% Netanyahu laid out today at the UN of Hamas's rocket arsenal has been eliminated. So you have lost a ring on your ring of fire. They're off the board. That ring of fire that surrounds Israel on all sides, remember, Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Syria, with Hezbollah, Assad, the Shia militias, Iraq, Shia militias, the Houthis in Yemen, of course, more on them in a minute, and Iran increasingly trying to make the West Bank, Judea, and Samaria, the biblical heartland, into a front as well. But look, it's bad enough for Iran to lose Gaza. And look, Iran's overarching scheme was to surround Israel, and they did it very successfully. They were able to surround Israel on all sides and arm these proxies to the teeth. But on October 7th, Hamas signed its own death warrant. And on October 8th, Hezbollah did the same. This was not the plan. The ultimate grand scheme for Iran was that all of the proxies at once, when the time was right, would launch an all-out massive assault from all directions against Israel and invade on the ground. Hezbollah storming across the northern border, Hamas across the southern border, the proxies from Syria coming in. It was a grand plan, but God had other plans, I believe. The God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And it didn't materialize. Yes, we had October 7th, horrific. But the scale of how it could have been, with a multi-front invasion, a multi-front onslaught, that was the ultimate plan. I can tell you right now, Hezbollah, for the time being at least, Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, they're pretty much off the board. So Iran's lost that. And look, over the years, Hamas had been and Islamic Jihad had been a thorn in the side of Israel that Iran called on frequently. Gone now. Hezbollah, I'm not going to say they're in their death throes by any means, but folks, they're hurting. They've lost literally their entire leadership. I don't know if Nasrallah's gone, who's the last man standing? Who's left in their chain of command at the very top? Good question. At least 3,000 of their top operatives were wounded last week, blinded, killed in the pager walkie-talkie attacks. Rocket launchers have been taken out. And now the IDF is focusing on Beirut airport and intercepting and destroying weapons shipments from Iran, surprise, surprise, to its most trusted proxy, Hezbollah. Because Iran already is trying to replenish Hezbollah's arsenal that's been destroyed over the past week and a half. Which brings the question, and I want to know what you think. We've been talking about this a bunch since September 17th. Hezbollah's on the ropes. I think we can all agree to that. Even Nasrallah himself said last week, we've suffered massive blows. And that was like last Thursday, 8 days ago. The last 8 days have brought many more blows upon their heads. So they're in dire straits right now. And I can tell you that, look, they've been launching hundreds of rockets still over the past few days. That's horrific. But I think everyone watching this live stream right now expected thousands. That Hezbollah, wow, the volume will be thousands per day at all points of Israel. Listen, folks, that may, God forbid, that's still a possibility. They still have a massive arsenal, and they still have many fighters left, no doubt. But you would think, man, they would have unleashed that by now. They may still. God forbid, we pray against that. We pray for a divine Iron Dome over Israel. But this is no time to get overconfident if you're Israel or a friend of Israel. I'll say that. But they seem severely weakened and in disarray right now. The question I have, are they too big to fail for Iran? We laid out the strategy of Iran. Look, Hezbollah has always been the crown jewel of that Iran proxy network. And they were the insurance policy. For if and when Israel strikes Iran's nuclear weapons facilities, how would Iran respond? Right away, first and foremost, they would have unleashed Hezbollah. They were holding Hezbollah in reserve for years, since 2006, building them up and building them up into this beast on Israel's northern border. Nasrallah and Iran, by extension, overplayed their hand, backed themselves into a corner where Nasrallah went all in with Hamas and said, as long as the war in Gaza continues, then we're going to keep attacking Israel every day. And they did exactly that for nearly a year, until Israel, as Netanyahu said today, said enough is enough. We're not going to do it. We're not going to have 80,000 people evacuated from their homes living out of suitcases for a year, with an entire region of our country a virtual ghost town. We're not going to do it. Sorry, Tony Blinken and Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, we're not doing it. Sorry, UN, Macron in France, it ain't happening. So finally, Israel took the gloves off. And man, if they took the gloves off. And if you're Iran right now, I've been saying this throughout the week. We reported earlier in the week here in the live stream. By the way, if you miss any of our live streams, check them out here in our archives under newscast. They're all right there if you need to catch up. But we said earlier this week that Hezbollah was begging, pleading with its Iranian masters to get involved directly and to directly strike Israel. And Iran said, no can do, Hez. The timing's not right, was reportedly what Iranian officials said to their Hezbollah counterparts. Timing's not right. The timing's not right because Israel means business and is unleashing hell on its enemies right now. But I believe Iran would get involved directly. And I mentioned earlier, Ayatollah Khamenei, the Iranian supreme leader, earlier today convened his cabinet, top advisors. What next? We may be about to lose our crown jewel, Hezbollah. Now what? If that happens, or if it looks like that's going to happen, you may indeed see Iran get involved and try and bail Hezbollah out. But if they don't get involved directly, it's a pretty good bet that that ring of fire, I'm talking the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, they may try and get involved to try and alleviate some of that constant pressure on Hezbollah. And then you've got the Assad regime in Syria. Hey, folks, the crossroads for a lot of this is Syria. And if you're a prophecy buff, and we've got many who watch the live stream, then you know Isaiah 17, the book of Isaiah, chapter 17, verse 1, which says that a day is coming. It's not me saying this, it's the word of God saying it. A day is coming where Damascus, one of the world's oldest inhabited cities, it's never been completely destroyed. Even the Mongols didn't completely destroy Damascus, but the Bible says a day is coming where Damascus will become like a ruinous heap. It will cease to be a city. That's according to the prophet Isaiah. Something to keep an eye on as this all goes forward. Expect the unexpected in today's Middle East. But a side note there, the Houthis launched another ballistic missile last night at Israel. It was intercepted. Last week, the Houthis launched a missile, or about a week and a half ago, that was intercepted. They apparently launched a drone towards Ashkelon as well along Israel's Mediterranean coast. And Netanyahu talked about the Houthis today a bit during that speech. And of course, back in July, a Houthi drone struck an apartment building in Tel Aviv and killed one Israeli civilian. Now, Israel sent a message in return, a massive airstrike similar to what they've been doing in Beirut against the Hodeida port, which was a major, major port for the Houthi jihadis. But the Houthis have been itching to get in the fight here in a major way for years now, even before October 7th. And they may get their wish if they continue what they've been doing. But I talked about this earlier today in an interview with my friend Chuck Colton from CBN News. I encourage you to follow Chuck and his great work. But, shame. This is really what's happening in Yemen with the Houthis is really an indictment of the United States and the UK. And by the way, they were attacked again. A U.S. ship today was attacked and intercepted a bunch of Houthi rockets and drones. The fact that the Houthi threat wasn't dealt with in like a day with the full combined might of the U.S. and UK militaries says a lot. And what it says is not good. It says that the U.S. is there, as they've made very clear, in a purely defensive posture. No one's calling for an invasion of Yemen, but there are ways to send a message to the Houthis and deter them for good. I hearken back to 1986, Libya. Long time ago, but relevant, 38 years ago, for the Houthi story, in my opinion. Ronald Reagan carried out pinpoint strikes against the presidential palace of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. He was the arch terrorist at the time, a thorn in our side, and you didn't hear very much from Gaddafi after that. So I think it needs to go from defensive and just intercepting Houthi projectiles. Look, they've shut down the Red Sea, essentially, in large part. This group of jihadis, it's insane and unacceptable and a display of American weakness, not the American people, but our current government. Israel, meanwhile, gets hit once and destroys the Houthis' most vital port. There's a way to do it. Israel's doing it the right way, but I digress. Keep an eye on the Houthis in the hours and days to come. Look, Iran and its proxies have taken it on the chin so much, so dramatically since July, really, that eventually they're going to have to, when they can catch their breath and get their bearings, they're going to have to mount some kind of response to save face, because they've been embarrassed in the eyes of the world. I said before October 7th that a day is coming when Israel will eventually decisively crush Hamas and Hezbollah. And we may be seeing that right now. And the decks are being, and Iran, if it loses Hamas and Hezbollah, you're going to see Iran lean even more, because then the proxy strategy is largely out the window, especially Hezbollah. You'll see Iran even more lean on Russia, lean on China, forge closer ties with Turkey, which is home to the other great anti-Semitic demagogue today, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the current president of Turkey. You might see Iran say, okay, the proxy strategy ultimately failed. Now we have to go with the big boys. And then you've got prophetic implications all over the place. We're talking Ezekiel 38 and 39. So we'll keep an eye on how these chess pieces, these prophetic chess pieces, move on the board in the days to come. But folks, big news day in the world's most pivotal, strategic, and chaotic region, the Middle East. Keep Israel in your prayers right now. Wisdom for Israel's leaders. And again, a divine hedge of protection over the land, as Iran and its proxy surely will look to respond in some fashion. And we don't know Nasrallah's fate yet, but fasten your seatbelts, keep it all in prayer. And remember, the God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. So be encouraged as we head into the weekend. Thanks so much for watching us on this very big news day. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching.